You're listening to the Churchosity Podcast, where we talk about the Gen X take on church culture. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Churchosity Podcast. My name is Heath Brady, and I am your host.
My name is Andrea Brady, and I'm your co-host.
We're just a couple of Gen Xers who are trying to give our perspective on church culture, and this podcast is dedicated to the Gen X Christians.
You know, the ones that want to just keep it simple.
Those ones who just want to live a quiet, peaceable life after all.
We represent the generation of Christians who sometimes looks at what other people are doing and thinks,
whatever.
But as it says in 1 Timothy 1:5,
the goal of our instruction is love, from a pure heart and from a good conscience and from a sincere faith. So what's going on, Andy?
Oh, not much.
Not much?
No, not much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Been kind of an interesting couple of weeks weather-wise, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's kind of been gross and rainy and cold and foggy and
that was after 4 days of rain and sub-freezing temperatures.
yeah, I'm ready for spring.
Yeah. I'd like spring to be in the air.
I kind of feel like I've been hibernating. Like I'll spend all day long inside and never go outside unless it's like to the car and then back inside. But I really hate that. I like spending time outside, but it's just too cold for me right now.
Yeah. One way that you and I are a little bit different is that I do get cabin fever. Mm-hmm. And I will literally try to come up with reasons to go run errands or something just to get out of the house for a while, because it can get a little depressing, like sitting in the house and looking outside and it's raining or it's foggy or it's cold or whatever.
Yeah. And I like taking drives.
Yes.
Even if we're just out driving just for a drive, that's kind of nice.
And if we like accidentally end up at Costco and spend our children's college tuition on groceries or something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. So what's been going on? You had anything like on your mind lately? Anything that's just been like you've been chomping at the bit to get off your chest or anything?
I don't know if I'm chomping at the bit, but there is...
You've never really been one to chomp at the bit about anything.
No. Well, unless it's a garage sale. I get pretty excited about those.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore because I'm trying to get rid of stuff. But
yeah. We might be having our own garage sale one of these days.
I think we need to. Yeah. I have a lot more stuff I need to get rid of. I'm trying to simplify. I mean, we always talk about simplifying, and yet I keep buying more stuff and bringing it home. Yeah. I had a conversation this week with a friend of mine, and it triggered something within me.
Uh-oh. Trigger warning.
It wasn't a bad thing necessarily. We were just talking, and it made me realize that I'm not alone and that there are other people out there who are experiencing similar issues as a parent.
Boy, sounds like this is going to be deep.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's just say, we're Gen Xers.
Oh, we don't just say we're Gen Xers. We are Gen Xers.
We are, okay.
Okay.
And we have children who are Gen Zs and millennials.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm talking with my friend, and they have a child who's in their late 20s. And
that would make them a millennial.
A young millennial.
A young millennial.
Yeah. There's the old millennials, and then there's the young millennials. So
yeah, the old millennials are like the 35-year-olds who are what didn't we used to call that like Gen Y back in the day?
Exactly.
Yeah, where are those people now?
They're the ones we can relate to a little bit better.
But aren't those the millennials that call us boomers?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. They're the ones who don't want to be called Gen X, but are really close in age to us. Anyway, so I'm talking with my friend who's also Gen X, and they have a child who's in their late 20s, and his children are getting married. He has 2 children that are in their 20s, and they're getting married, which is great, But the conversation took a turn, and we were talking, and I brought up the fact that a lot of kids their age, a lot of young millennials don't want to have children. And I've been hearing this more and more and more, even from our own kids, that even if they decide to get married, they probably won't want to have kids. So I've been wrestling with the reality that I might never be a grandparent. And it makes me sad, but I'm okay with it. I think at this point, I'm okay with that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I am. But the question still lingers. Why? I mean, when I was young, when I was their age, or even younger, I definitely thought I was going to get married and have children.
Right.
It never occurred to me that I wouldn't want to get married or wouldn't want to have children. It was always in my mind that I wanted kids and I wanted to be married.
Would it be fair to say that it's just kind of what we anticipated the future was going to be for us when we were kids, that someday we would meet the person of our dreams and or not, but we would meet that person that we'd fall in love with, and we would get married and we would have kids.
Yeah. So I wanted to explore why we think maybe things are taking a turn and things are changing in our culture. And of course it's affecting our church culture as well, because I think a lot of people even in the church that are young and getting married, or if they're getting married at all, they're deciding they don't want to have kids.
Right.
And I don't know. I did a little research.
Oh.
I did a little bit of research.
My wife doing research up in here.
One of the statistics I found was that only 60% of the kids born around 1997 will marry by the age of 40.
Wow.
So that's 40% who are choosing not to get married.
So,
or, not getting married. And those are for white, non-Hispanic people.
But that's 60% of Americans born
around 1997.
Yeah. So that's the age of our oldest 3 and older.
Yeah.
So our 3 oldest. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And it said there's a 60% chance that they'll get married?
Yep.
Or 60% of those will get married, leaving 40%.
That's what they're estimating by the age of 40.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because, we hear a lot of comedians and a lot of public speakers and just in general people kind of talking about how there's so many 35-year-olds still living in their parents' basement playing Call of Duty.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be that demographic. So does that mean that the other 40% are going to live in their parents' basement? Or?
I don't know. Yeah. I think, and I looked at another statistic here. I've got, this is a projection for Gen Z and for millennials. This is something that they surveyed these groups of people. Anyhow, only 20% of Gen Z think that they might want to get married before the age of 30. I mean, 30 is pretty young, but I mean, it's not. It's kind of about the right age, I think. So when they quizzed or surveyed these groups of people, it's the Gen Zs, only 20% of them wanted to get married before the age of 30. And millennials, 28% were thinking that they might want to get married before the age of 30.
The young millennials then?
Yeah, the young millennials.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And becoming a parent, only for Gen Z, only 12%
want to have kids
before the age of 30. They didn't ask, they asked, what do you want to accomplish in life before you're 30? What's important to you?
I see.
Yeah.
So they kind of padded the interview with those young people by giving them 5 different options, and and one of the options was have kids.
Yeah. Well, they gave them I don't know, 12 options, I think.
Oh, wow.
And they rated them 1 through 12. And so to Gen Z, their most important, the three most important things to them: finish their education, start a career,
right,
and become financially independent. And the same 3 were the top 3 for the millennials, just in a different order. They wanted to become financially independent, finish their education, start a career. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
That's some pretty deep stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as a children's ministry director, these are, and having been in ministry for quite a long time, specifically with children and with youth, this is something that I can really attest to and bear witness to, that not only does it seem like the younger generations don't want to get married, but they do in fact don't want to have children.
Yeah.
And I used to think, like, several years ago, a church that we were in, I was serving in children's ministry, and when I had first started in that role, there was a lot of kids in that Sunday school program, and within 2.5 years, it was almost cut in half.
Wow.
Because the ministry was aging out. And I thought, well, maybe it's because of, maybe it's a geographical thing. Maybe it's because of where we live. And so, of course, as any good minister would do, you want to do some research.
Right.
And you make some phone calls, and you get on the internet, and you write letters or emails to people, and come to find out, it's kind of an America thing.
Oh.
That the millennials, we knew a lot of young people at one point who were 25 to 35 years old, and only a handful of them had gotten married. And only one of them two of them had babies. And that was just in that one church. And so I remember those conversations back then with staff and leadership, like, our Sunday school program is aging out.
Yeah, there's no babies.
And like, please don't hear us saying y'all need to get out there and start having some children, because that's not what we're saying.
No, we're just exploring the why.
Yeah, we're exactly. Like, why, what is going on? And that's a really, really great conversation.
Yeah. It's completely...
I have a theory.
What is it?
Well, we always talk in a general sense about how the different generations were or are.
Right.
And we've mentioned this in a previous episode, that our generation were the latchkey kids.
Oh, yeah.
And we were left to fend for ourselves.
A lot.
The majority of the 80s brats, we took care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And had all kinds of freedom.
Oh, man. So independent.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we grew up, and God forbid became adults.
Oh, gosh.
And we started getting married and having children.
Yeah.
I can't speak for every Gen Xer out there, but I just find it curious that so many people our age, you and me, Andrea, that so many people our age who had children turned into helicopter parents.
We did. Well,
it's almost like we decided
we wanted our kids to have it better than us. Of course.
Every parent wants that.
Yeah.
That's been that way since the dawn of time.
If we felt neglected at all, we certainly never wanted our kids to feel that way.
And I think that that's a healthy desire for your kids. Like, you don't want your kids to ever feel neglected. You don't want your kids to ever feel like you don't care or that you don't want to be there.
Right.
And our generation, we took it to the nth degree, bro.
Okay.
Like we decided that our kids were never we were never gonna miss what our kids were doing.
Never miss one of their games. Never miss one of their concerts.
Right. We were gonna make sure that they were in plenty of activities, and we were gonna drive them to every single one of those activities, or carpool them to every single one of those things. That's where the whole helicopter parenting, we were just lifting off to the next stop, to the next stop, to the next stop.
Right.
And some of us even coached our kids to make sure that they got quality activities, Yep.
And
so all of, that's basically the millennials now, and Gen Z. That's how we raised them. And so
That's a lot of work.
Well, and they get a good head on their shoulders, and they look at how freaking exhausted we are, or what they perceive is that we're exhausted.
Yeah.
And they probably think to themselves, first of all, I don't want to be that tired.
Yeah.
That's way too much work. But second of all, think about what a millennial or a Gen Z young person right now might be thinking about how much of a priority they are. They're like the center of the universe. I mean, here's another thing.
We raised them to be the center of our universe.
We did, because we were the ones going around and inventing smartphones and taking 87,000 pictures of little Joey and going, here's my little rock star. Everybody's freaking kid became a superstar who could never do anything wrong.
Ooh.
And, shined at everything that they touched.
Right.
We came out with the fair play for all culture in sports, and making sure that everyone got a trophy and everyone got a ribbon, and we didn't keep score of games and things like that. All of our children are used to being put first.
Yeah. Well, life isn't really like that, is it?
It's not, but at the same time, especially the millennials, they might be thinking to themselves, I don't want to stop being the center of my universe. I don't want to have to pay attention to another life. I don't want to. I mean, the idea of being a parent is scary all by itself and exhausting. But on top of that, the idea of having to put my needs and my wants aside to care for another life, I don't want to do that. That might be what they're thinking.
Yeah, back in the 80s, we had a word for people like that.
What was that?
Dinks.
Dinks.
Remember the dinks?
Dual income, no kids. And they were rare.
Yeah, I mean, and it was kind of a derogatory thing. Like, they were selfish and, consumer based.
That was Freddie and Sarah, who lived on the east side.
Yeah, and they drove a BMW. And
yep,
or they
two.
both did, yes.
Yep. That's so true.
I know, and we just,
Gosh,
we made
you know what?
fun
Now
of
that I'm thinking about it, the neighborhood I grew up in, right across the street from me, there was a couple like that.
And you called them dinks.
And we called them dinks.
Yes.
Or my parents did, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Funny stuff. But, you bring up this is really, really interesting stuff. And now my wheels are spinning. Talking about this whole being the center of the universe kind of thing. I think that everybody to a certain extent really struggles with that. It makes me think of like one of my favorite movie franchises.
What?
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. Yeah. Do I take the blue pill or do I take the red pill? How far down the rabbit hole do I really want to go? But no, I mean, if you've never seen the Matrix movies, and they just finally, after, 15 years, 10 years, something like that, just came out with a fourth one.
Nice. I might need to watch it again.
Okay. So the basic premise of at least the first movie that fed into the second and third was that here was a guy who really, really hated the idea that he couldn't be in total control of his life.
Right.
And because he felt like there was something wrong with the world, he wanted to find out what it was. And so, it turned out...
How deep does the rabbit hole really go?
How deep does the rabbit hole really go? And so, he finds out that the world that is really going on around us isn't real. That's the Matrix, that it's a dream world, and he meets a guy named Morpheus who offers him the opportunity to discover what actually is the real world. And so he takes the red pill. But what's interesting is that even once he enters the real world, through all of the first movie, all of the second movie, and most of the third movie, he still wrestles with fate.
Yeah, I remember.
And there's a character in that movie called the Oracle. And she says, that's okay. Because you know what? Even though I hate giving you bad news, everything's going to be okay. Because you're going to walk out that door and you're going to remember that you really don't like any of this fake crap. You want to make up your own mind and be in control of your life. And this conversation made me think about that. Like, it's almost like the millennials love the blue pill. and they're fine with it. Mm-hmm. They're afraid of the red pill. They're afraid of maybe what the real world has to offer. But at the same time, isn't going to college, getting your education, getting your degree, establishing your career, isn't that something that we told them they needed to do?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we're responsible for that too.
It's true.
Boy, we really failed, didn't we?
Do you want me to read the list?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
For who do you want me to read the list? Gen Z or the millennials?
Do the millennials, and then we'll see if we should do the other one too.
Okay.
But
it's not that much different.
Okay.
But okay.
What are you reading? Like the top 10 or what?
There's 12.
12. Okay.
Okay. So the most important thing to the millennials, number 1, is to become financially independent. This is before the age of 30, what they want to accomplish. Okay. Number 2 is finish their education. Number 3 is start a career. Number 4, find out who they really are.
Oh, are they going to go backpacking through Europe for a month and find themselves?
Maybe. I don't know.
You realize what would have happened if I would have said that to my parents?
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to take off and go find myself.
My dad would have freaked out.
Like, you're right here.
He would have called me a hippie.
You're right here in front of me. What, have you been smoking something? That's what my parents would have said.
I'll show you who you really are. Okay, number 5, they want to follow their dreams.
I like that one, though. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good one, and I think that right smack dab in the middle of that list is a good place for it.
Following their dreams?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
And I think this was taken from a Christian perspective, this survey, because number 6 is they want to become more spiritually mature.
Yeah, maybe. But, everything is spiritual now.
True.
Like, my father used to say, I wasn't a religious man, but I was a spiritual man. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
But everybody's like into, navel gazing and crystals and some Jesus sprinkled in and Buddhism and all that. So maybe,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we also, we touched on this in a previous episode. We also know that only 10% of millennials that were raised in the church are actually still going.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll continue.
Okay.
Number 7 is get married.
Wow. Mm-hmm. It's in the back half.
Back half, yep. Number 8 is enjoy life before you have responsibilities of being an adult.
Okay, so that's what I was alluding to.
And back in our day, when were you an adult?
When you turned 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you hit that age of accountability, which was like 13, and then you were told you got to grow up.
No, I was an adult at 18.
Yeah.
I mean, I was told I was an adult. I felt like I was an adult, even though I was still in school. But,
I'm still not an adult.
I feel like only a few years after I graduated from high school, there was like a group of people who they really weren't grown up, and they really didn't want to grow up until they were like 30. Yep. I can tell you that's
because they were stuck in high school.
Yep. Okay, so number 9, become a parent.
Wow. Towards the end. Mm-hmm. And these are millennials.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 10
Well, at least there's some hope.
Number 10 is travel to other countries.
Yeah.
Number 11, care for the poor and needy.
I'm not surprised that's towards the end.
12, try to become famous or influential.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too many of the millennials want to be the next Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. Well, it's number 12 for the Gen Zs too, which is weird to me because I think that they would,
Gen Z is the TikTok generation. That's kind of surprising to me.
I know. It is kind of weird.
Interesting.
It's really not that much different. They're a little bit different in order, but the Gen Zs. One thing that really stood out to me about the Gen Zs, getting married is further down the list a little bit, and finding out who you really are is way further down too. So that wasn't as important. But traveling to other countries was more important to them.
Yeah. What I see is interesting, though, on both of those lists is that at the top you have everything that matters to them, like themselves, and is in the top, and things that have to do with others is at the bottom. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. We thought when we graduated from high school that we had it all figured out and we were indestructible.
We did.
And then we realized that we didn't have anything figured out and we were very much vulnerable.
We're still figuring it out.
Absolutely. At nearly 50 years old, we're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I haven't grown up yet.
No.
I'm like the forever Peter Pan. Like I don't want to grow up. Shoot.
It's kind of weird. I mean, I don't want to grow up. I am grown up. I'm totally grown up, and I've been grown up for a long time. But, I still appreciate childlike fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm starting to get to the point where I can say I have some wisdom. I found a couple gray hairs the other day. So I guess I'm pretty wise.
The book of Proverbs talks about how revered people with gray hair are.
Yeah, look to the gray hairs.
Look to the gray hairs. Gray hair is a sign of wisdom and knowledge.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed is the one who receives knowledge from the gray hairs. My favorite. Here is wisdom. Get more wisdom.
That's right. It's so true. I can never have enough.
Yeah. Isn't that stuff is really interesting, man. You've really got me thinking now. Being the age that we're at now, I was kind of looking forward to being a grandpa.
I was looking forward to being a grandparent. Yeah,
but that's their choice,
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to have kids, then they don't have to have kids, and it means I get to hold on to more of my money. Just kidding.
Well, I guess, when the kids move away and they all grow up and we're empty nesters, etc., then I guess we can devote more of our life to serving the Lord.
And traveling.
Yeah, and traveling. And having fun. But
maybe then we'll simplify.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Our baby is looking at colleges now.
Yep.
That is just crazy to me.
I know. I'm excited.
This week we went and toured a college.
Uh-huh.
And I was walking around and I'm thinking to myself, this is not happening. This
I was looking around thinking, this is happening.
But it's kind of surreal.
Yeah.
Like this is number 5.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe, I don't feel old. I'm not old, but I can remember being her age. I can remember being 18. I can remember getting ready to go to college, and I just wish I could, go back and do it again. Being on campus and looking around, and she's got it all, man, and she doesn't even know it.
Right. Yeah, 90% of the things, 90% of the opportunities and the things that are being offered at these colleges, they didn't even exist or were even a thought when we were 18.
No kidding.
And I'm just talking about scholarships. I'm talking about activities, services, hardware, furniture, like everything. I'm just like, really?
Wow. They have so many resources at the college now.
Yeah.
That, they basically hold their hand the whole time.
But what's kind of impressive about it is that I have to, especially this school that we looked at recently, I'm very, very impressed with how so many different types of industries and facilities have kind of come out of the pandemic era.
Yeah.
We're still dealing with it, obviously, but, there's so much negativity about all things COVID, and yet I find myself saying all the time that this has given us such incredible opportunity to try new stuff.
True.
All bets are off. We have permission to really, really try thinking and trying things that are outside of the box.
It's true.
And the trend of virtual or online school for college had already been around for quite a while. But with technology and the advancing of all things internet, there are just so many things that they're able to do even while they're in person, but respecting, boundaries and spaces and whatever. It's really, really cool.
The pandemic also, I think, pushed people who were like uncomfortable with the technology to actually forced them to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the technology's been there for a while. I mean, for a long time, you could FaceTime or Skype or now the Zoom calls. And, you know, those of us, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not like super excited about being on a video conference call, but I'm totally comfortable with it now. And
I think that might be because of our generation. We don't even like leaving voicemails.
It makes me think of the Jetsons.
Oh, yeah.
Remember they
bling,
had the video
bling, bling, bling.
they had the video call, and when the wife, I forget what her name was, sat down in front of it.
Jane.
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 She like put on her fake face.
Right.
I wish I had a fake face to put on. Like she had, you know.
I wish I had a Rosie the robot.
Oh gosh, I need a Rosie. Hey, I have a Roomba. That's almost.
Oh,
as
there
good.
we go. Ronnie the Roomba.
That's right. But yeah, it's amazing all the technology that they have at their fingertips now. What?
You know what's creepy? So, Star Trek, the original series,
yes,
came out in like 65 or 68 or something like that, before we were born.
Yeah.
Gene Roddenberry, like, saw into the future somehow. Because if you think about it, and, you know, and I don't mean to, like, butcher Trekkie world or anything like that, but I know some stuff about Star Trek.
What? I don't really know that much about Star Trek.
back in the late 60s, Gene Roddenberry invented this science fiction television series about all of these people on a spaceship traveling through the universe, and they use things like communicators to talk to each other. Like one of them would be down on the planet and the other one would be up on the ship, and they would go beep 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 beep, pull this thing out of their pocket, and they'd talk to each other.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back in the late 90s, we had, do you remember what those things were called? They were like walkie-talkies, and you could talk to each other from like a million miles away.
Yeah,
like
I remember.
long before cell phones and long before smartphones, obviously.
I forget what they're
I don't remember
called.
what they're called now, but they didn't live for very long because the technology really sped up in that department. But now, you know, 85% of the world is walking around with a computer/communicator in their pockets.
Yep.
Or how about when the Starship Enterprise got hailed by someone on another spaceship?
The Klingons.
And they said, on screen.
Right. Oh,
Guess
yeah.
what? They're FaceTiming now. Like, this is back in the 60s. Gene Roddenberry was coming up with all of this technology. And, you know, 50, 60 years later, or 50 years later, excuse me, all of that's been pretty much invented.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm just waiting for the teleporter, the transporter.
Yeah.
You know, beam me up, Scotty.
I want to... That would be scary.
Well, I think that one thing that the pandemic has really done, and you mentioned it, is that it's forced so many people to get comfortable with the technology because otherwise you just can't function. Yeah, I mean, you really can't at least do an email, you know?
That's true.
So are you really going to be okay if you're not a grandma?
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to push it, but...
Because remember, our parents and their parents, those were the generations that were like, when am I going to have some grandkids?
That's true.
When am I going to have some grandkids? When are you going to get married and make me a grandmother? You know, our parents were the ones saying that.
True.
And I think that Gen Z parents are probably a lot more comfortable with not necessarily becoming grandparents because we have raised our children to be assertive, think for themselves, and, you know, make up their own minds about what they want to do. And that the results of that survey, that research that you did, they kind of speak to that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they've made up their mind that they want to get their education, they want to get their degrees, they want to get settled in a career,
become financially independent.
I'm
all for that.
Yeah. And then maybe we'll get married. But probably not have kids.
Right.
And I remember reading a statistic last year. So the numbers haven't been updated, and it's probably because it's tough to do with all things pandemic. But I remember a year ago reading a statistic that there was a 28% decline in new babies being born in America. That is a substantial decline. And as I mentioned before, if you go to church and you look in your kids' ministry right now, how many kids are in your Sunday school today versus pre-COVID numbers?
Right.
How many babies are in your nursery today versus pre-COVID numbers? And I don't think that COVID has anything to do with how many children are not in your church. I just don't, because those of us who have returned to worshiping on a regular basis, the numbers and data still speak to the number of folks who have actually returned to church.
Okay.
It's still the same. The percentages are still there. It's kind of nuts.
Wow.
Well, I think that rather than slipping into depression over this, I think that you and I should just get used to doing what we've been doing for several months. Staying up late, watching shows that make us laugh.
Right.
And I've been really impressed with the fact that you've gotten me to fall in love with some shows over the last few years, because I hate comedies. I don't like comedies.
Right.
But you've picked a couple.
I think that as a Gen Xer, we're doing what we do best. We are adaptable.
Yes.
And this shows how adaptable we are.
We adapt and overcome.
We never know what's going to happen in our life. I mean, our life's taken twists and turns, and
it really has.
It's not like, I always thought I was going to be a grandparent one day, but it's not something I really thought about much until, maybe 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just seemed the natural order of things, but our life has taught us to be adaptable. We've been adaptable since we were latchkey kids.
Yep.
We're always adaptable, and that's what we do best.
That is a really great point.
So
I think that we should just keep adapting and watching reruns of The Office and The Big Bang Theory and
trusting the Lord.
And one day we'll simplify completely, sell everything we have, and move to Florida.
And go to Disney World every day.
Go to Disney World every day, and I'll be that 65-year-old man that's sweeping up garbage, saying, "Have a magical day."
We'll be retired.
Yeah, we will.
We'll be sipping some kind of limoncello drink.
Oh, I like that
in
already.
Epcot.
So, Andy.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
What is it?
Our ability to adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
Are we taking the blue pill or the red pill when we do that?
Is it the blue pill that... I don't know which pill's which. I don't remember.
The red pill takes us down the rabbit hill. The red pill takes us down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
The blue pill keeps us...
in the Matrix.
In the Matrix,
well,
believing the facade.
We want to be in the rabbit hole.
We want to be in the rabbit hole?
Yeah.
So the message then is what? Take the red pill, ladies and gentlemen. Your life will be so much better. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding.
In all thy ways acknowledge him and he will direct thy path.
Amen. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6.
Woohoo. And that's all we have to say about that.
Thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of the Churchosity Podcast, the show where we try to give you the Gen X take on church culture. And thank you, as always, to my amazing and awesome co-host.
Thank you. I had fun. Be sure to follow us on all the socials. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is @ChurchosityPod. Drop us a message and give us your feedback. We would really love to hear from you.
And especially if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, be sure to give us a rating, and it has to be 5 stars. Just kidding. But yeah, please be sure to give us a rating and leave a comment, leave us some feedback that helps promote the show, helps support the show, and helps others find the show as well. But don't forget to spread the word about the Churchosity Podcast. Be sure that you tell a friend to tell a friend what we're doing here.
Yeah, we would love for them to be a part of the conversation too.
But always remember that the goal of our instruction is love.
From a pure heart.
and from a good conscience.
And a sincere faith.
So we thank you once again for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Churchosity Podcast. Peace.